Morning decisions. How about a creamy mocha frappuccino drink? Or sweet vanilla? Smooth caramel maybe? Or a white chocolate mocha? Whichever you choose, delicious coffee awaits. Find Starbucks Frappuccino drinks wherever you buy your groceries.
What if letting go of worst-case thinking could bring you more peace? How does expecting the worst affect your mental health? And how would your life change if you could stop assuming the worst was going to happen? Well, that's what I'm talking about this week. So, if you're ready to learn how to stop expecting the worst-case scenario and what to do if it actually happens, then let's talk. Hello, and thanks for joining me for the Let's Talk About Mental Health podcast, the independent show full of simple ideas for better mental health. If you're new here, then hi, I'm Jeremy Godwin, podcast creator and writer, and this isn't another show full of interviews or random opinions. I'm also a mental health counsellor, and each week I teach you practical and effective ways to improve your mental well-being, all based on quality research as well as my own experience of learning to live with anxiety and depression after a breakdown in 2011 that completely changed my life. This is episode 260, and today I'm talking about expecting the worst-case scenario, what it means and why we do it, how it affects your mental health, and how to stop doing it so much. So, let's talk. Have you ever found yourself imagining the worst possible outcome of a situation, even when there's no real reason to? Like thinking a friend is upset with you because they didn't reply right away, or assuming you'll completely fail a task before you've even started. If so, you're definitely not alone. Many of us find ourselves mentally jumping to these types of doom-filled conclusions far more often than we'd care to admit. But here's the thing. Constantly expecting the worst isn't just exhausting, it actually holds you back from feeling calm, present, and positive. When you get stuck in a cycle of worst-case scenario thinking, it can have an enormous effect on your mental health, building up stress and anxiety over things that may never happen, or that are probably out of your control even if they do happen. In this episode, I'm diving into why so many of us tend to expect the worst, and more importantly, how letting go of that habit can lead to better mental well-being. Because the truth is, when you stop assuming that disaster is always around the corner, you give yourself the opportunity to live with a clearer and more balanced perspective. One where you can approach life with calm and resilience, rather than with fear. So let's talk about how to break free from worst-case thinking and start opening up to a world of healthier and more realistic optimism, one step at a time. First, let's get ourselves on the same page with some definitions, and let's talk about what is worst-case scenario thinking. Expecting the worst-case scenario means assuming that the most negative outcome is not only possible, but likely. It's a mindset where you find yourself preparing for disasters that often don't happen, and yet the anticipation itself can feel all too real. This tendency, which sometimes shows up as a form of pessimism, is often rooted in a need for control or self-protection, as though bracing for the worst could soften the blow if it actually happens. While it may seem logical to expect the worst as a way of staying prepared, it can become a habit that discolors your perspective on life. When we constantly assume the worst, we're essentially predicting failure, disappointment, or disaster in a way that overlooks other possibilities, especially the realistic or even positive ones. And it also means we're hyperfixating on that worst-case scenario itself, rather than considering what actions we can take and what might be within our own control should the worst actually happen. So, when you focus on worst case thinking, it can feel like you're carrying a heavy cloud of what ifs, even when things around you are fine. So, it's easy to see how this mindset can create unnecessary stress, anxiety, and even a sense of hopelessness. On a practical level, expecting the worst can play out in different ways, depending on the situation and how strong that tendency is. Let's say you're waiting to hear back about a job interview, and instead of thinking about how well it went, you start imagining that they won't call back, or that you somehow messed it up. Perhaps you begin preparing for rejection before any decision is made, which can stop you from enjoying the anticipation or even taking steps towards other opportunities. Another example might be in relationships. If you're expecting the worst, you may assume the other person will eventually disappoint or hurt you. This can lead to self-protective behaviors like distancing yourself emotionally or looking for flaws as a way of justifying your doubts, even if the other person has done nothing to warrant this expectation. In this way, the habit of assuming the worst can lead you to preemptively protect yourself, but it often means missing out on genuine connection or positive experiences. Expecting the worst doesn't make you more prepared. It usually just limits your potential by encouraging you to stay guarded or to approach new situations with unnecessary negativity. Expecting the worst can profoundly affect your mental well-being, particularly when it becomes a pattern or habitual response. Worst-case scenario thinking is closely linked to cognitive distortions, which are irrational thought patterns that reinforce negative emotions and skew our perception of reality. When you expect the worst, you're often engaging in distortions like catastrophizing, imagining the absolute worst possible outcome, black and white thinking, where you tend to see situations in terms of extremes, like either success or disaster, and fortune telling, where your brain predicts negative outcomes without evidence. These distortions fuel each other, creating a loop of negative expectations that feels real but is actually exaggerated. Cognitive distortions make worst-case thinking automatic and habitual, impacting your mental health and leading to pessimism. When you're frequently anticipating the worst, it's like constantly feeding your mind with things to worry about, which keeps your nervous system in a state of alert, as if danger were imminent. Over time, this kind of pessimistic outlook can contribute to ongoing stress and anxiety, and even depression, because it reinforces a negative cycle. If left unchecked, it can become a lens through which you view the world, leading you to approach life with a "why bother" attitude. This is where shifting towards more realistic optimism can be powerful. By aiming for a more balanced mindset, you allow yourself to see both the challenges and the possibilities of a situation, rather than fixating solely on the worst-case scenario. So, now let's talk about why you need to stop expecting the worst-case scenario. And really, it comes down to the fact that it's incredibly stressful and harmful to your mental health. When you're not automatically bracing for disaster, you can approach situations more calmly and rationally, making space for both positive and negative outcomes without feeling overwhelmed by worry. This helps you develop a more rounded perspective where you're better able to assess situations realistically rather than getting caught up in pessimism. By letting go of the need to predict and control outcomes, you're giving yourself the chance to experience life as it unfolds, rather than living in a constant state of what if. Look, it's not about denying that challenges or difficulties happen, because they do, but it's about recognizing that they are just one part of a much larger picture. When you stop expecting the worst, you open yourself up to possibilities, making it easier to take calculated risks, embrace new opportunities, and find enjoyment in day-to-day experiences. In terms of your mental health, reducing worst-case thinking can have a huge effect. When you're not caught in a loop of expecting bad outcomes, it's easier to feel calm and focused. Constantly anticipating disaster puts your body and mind in a perpetual state of alertness, which can contribute to chronic stress and anxiety. This hyper-alert state means your nervous system is always on edge, ready to react to potential threats, whether they're real or imagined. Over time, this can lead to burnout, as your mind and body have no opportunity to rest or recharge. On the other hand, allowing yourself to approach situations with realistic optimism, where you acknowledge potential risks without assuming they'll always happen, and knowing that you'll be able to handle them if they do, helps to calm your mind, reduce stress, and improve emotional resilience. It's about training your brain to expect both possibilities, good and bad, rather than defaulting to the negative. This balanced outlook can make you feel more in control of your thoughts and emotions, which is key for your long-term mental health and well-being. So how do you do that? Well, let's first take a quick break to hear from the brands who help me create this show each week.
K-pop Demon Hunters Haja Boys Breakfast Meal and Huntrix Meal have just dropped at McDonald's. They're calling this a battle for the fans. What do you say to that, Rumi?
It's not a battle. So glad the Saja Boys could take breakfast and give our meal the rest of the day.
It is an honor to share.
No, it's our honor.
It is our larger honor.
No, really. Stop.
You can really feel the respect in this battle. Pick a meal to pick a side.
Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
At participating McDonald's while supplies last.
Good sleep is everything. That's why Ollie's Science Back Support is made with a blend of melatonin and L-theanine for both kiddos and grown-ups. So when your mind won't switch off, you've got something that can help. Your racing thoughts and restless nights won't stand a chance. Find Ollie Sleep Solutions for the whole family at ollie.com. That's OLLY.com.
Eczema is unpredictable, but you can flare less with Ebglyss, a once-monthly treatment for moderate to severe eczema. After an initial 4-month or longer dosing phase, about 4 in 10 people taking Ebglyss achieved itch relief and clear or almost clear skin at 16 weeks. And most of those people maintain skin that's still more clear at 1 year with monthly dosing.
Ebglyss, lebrikizumab LBKZ, a 250 milligram per 2 milliliter injection, is a prescription medicine used to treat adults and children 12 years of age and older who weigh at least 88 pounds or 40 kilograms with moderate to severe eczema, also called atopic dermatitis, that is not well controlled with prescription therapies used on the skin or topicals, or who cannot use topical therapies. Ebglyss can be used with or without topical corticosteroids. Don't use if you're allergic to Ebglyss. Allergic reactions can occur that can be severe. Eye problems can occur. Tell your doctor if you have new or worsening eye problems. You should not receive a live vaccine when treated with Ebglyss. Before starting Ebglyss, tell your doctor if you have a parasitic infection.
Ask your doctor about Ebglyss and visit ebglyss.lilly.com or call 1-800-LILY-RX or 1-800-545-5979.
And welcome back. Now let's get into the how-to part of today's episode, and let's talk about how to stop worst-case scenario thinking. All right, so here are some practical tips for you, starting with actively challenge negative thoughts. The first step to reducing worst-case thinking is recognizing and challenging your negative thoughts as they arise. So when you catch yourself imagining a worst-case scenario, pause and ask yourself whether there's any evidence to support that potential outcome. Often, your worst-case thoughts are assumptions based on fear, not facts. Doing this helps to shift your perspective from automatic negativity to a more objective and realistic outlook. Ask yourself simple questions like, what are some other possible outcomes? Or, how likely is it that this will actually happen? The goal is to train your mind to look for balance rather than leaping straight into pessimism. Okay, next, reframe situations with positive what-ifs. If you're prone to thinking things like, what if it all goes wrong? Then try flipping the script by asking, what if it goes right? Or, what if this brings an opportunity I hadn't considered? Reframing helps to broaden your thinking, allowing space for positive or neutral outcomes. Start by catching yourself when you use negative what-if questions, then make a conscious effort to replace them with balanced or positive alternatives. Over time, you'll develop a habit of seeing both sides of the coin. Next, limit your exposure to negativity. The information you consume shapes your mindset, so reducing exposure to negativity, like bad news or pessimistic conversations, can help to retrain your brain to expect a range of outcomes. This works because constant exposure to negative input reinforces worst-case thinking. You can do this by choosing what you read, watch, or engage with carefully and intentionally. Aim for a balance, seeking out sources that offer constructive perspectives. This shift makes it easier to focus on possibilities and reduces the mental load that comes from absorbing other people's fears and anxieties. Okay, next, acknowledge that uncertainty is part of life. Accepting that life is inherently chaotic and uncertain helps you stop striving for control over every outcome, and it can reduce worst-case thinking because it makes you more comfortable with the unknown. Remind yourself, not everything is within my control, and that's okay. This mindset helps to free you from the need to anticipate every possible challenge, allowing you to focus instead on what you can control in the present. Speaking of, my next point is focus on what you can control. All you have direct control over is yourself, and more specifically, what you choose to do and say. That's it. Sure, you can influence other people and situations, and I encourage you to do so, remembering to be kind when you do. But the thing is that a lot of our worries tend to be about things we cannot ever hope to directly control. So, don't even try. Turn your focus specifically to identifying what is within your direct control and what you can do to address any issues you might potentially be dealing with. Continuing on, my next tip is focus on the present. When you start expecting the worst, it's often because you're focusing on outcomes rather than the steps you can take now. Focusing on the present action helps keep your mind grounded in what you can control, reducing anxiety about the future. You can do this by asking yourself, what can I do right now to improve the situation? This simple act of refocusing on actionable steps in the present can help you feel more empowered, making it easier to keep your attention in the present. Okay, next, practice cognitive flexibility, which is the ability to see a situation from multiple perspectives. When you expect the worst, your thinking can become rigid, focusing on just one outcome. By practicing flexibility, you're reminding yourself that there are multiple ways a situation could unfold. This technique is helpful because it trains your brain to adapt to new information rather than locking onto a single conclusion, which is usually negative. You can practice this by writing down at least 3 possible outcomes for a situation: positive, neutral, and challenging. This exercise helps your mind get used to looking at scenarios from different angles. Next, adopt a probability mindset. When we expect the worst, it's often because we're overestimating the likelihood of that outcome actually happening. Adopting a probability mindset means consciously assessing the realistic chances of a worst-case scenario rather than just assuming it's inevitable. This helps to introduce rational thinking into an emotional response, making it easier to see when your fears are exaggerated. Start by giving a percentage estimate to your feared outcome, and if it's low, remind yourself that other possibilities are far more likely. This method grounds your thinking in reality. Okay, next, visualize realistic scenarios. When you find yourself spiraling into worst-case thoughts, try visualizing more balanced and realistic outcomes. Imagine both the likely positives and potential challenges rather than just the negative extremes. This gives your mind a realistic picture to work with rather than one clouded by fear. Close your eyes and picture what's most likely to happen, including positive and neutral possibilities, which helps your mind explore a broader range of outcomes, making it easier to avoid jumping to the worst-case scenario. Next, plan. Sometimes it's just helpful to acknowledge your fears in a structured way. So, make a simple plan for what you'll do if a challenging scenario occurs. This helps because it reassures you that you have a plan in place, reducing the need for constant worry. For example, if you're worried about missing a deadline, plan by saying, "If I'm delayed, then I'll ask for a short extension." This helps you feel prepared without dwelling on negative outcomes. Okay, next, practice self-reflection to understand your fears. Worst-case thinking is often rooted in deeper fears that need to be explored. Self-reflection, either through journaling or talking with a counselor, can help you understand those fears and figure out how to address them directly. Plus, it allows you to get to the root of your worries instead of just managing symptoms. Ask yourself questions like, what am I really afraid of? Or, why do I think this outcome would be so bad, and what could I do about it? Understanding your fears can make them feel much more manageable. Okay, next, practice self-compassion. When you expect the worst, it's often driven by self-criticism or fear of not handling challenges well. By practicing self-compassion, you remind yourself that mistakes or setbacks are part of life, and that you're more than capable of dealing with them if and when they happen, which builds your resilience and reduces the harshness of self-doubt. You can do this by speaking to yourself kindly, especially when things don't go as planned. Think about how you'd encourage a friend in the same situation and apply that language to yourself. Next, limit rumination time. Look, we all need to feel what we need to feel, but if you let that drag on for too long, you'll end up feeling overwhelmed. By consciously limiting the amount of time you let yourself ruminate over things, you're keeping yourself from dwelling too long on the worst-case scenario. Try setting a timer for 5 minutes to allow yourself to think through the issue, then consciously move on to another task or topic. This breaks the cycle of negative thinking and gives you the chance to step away from your fears before they become all-consuming. If that's something you struggle with, check out episode 236 about how to stop overthinking so much. Okay, next, practice positive affirmations. So, positive affirmations can help shift your inner dialogue from fearful to balanced. By repeating affirmations that counter worst-case thinking with more positive thoughts, you can gradually reshape your beliefs about potential outcomes. This helps to build a foundation of self-trust and calm rather than anxiety. Try affirmations like, I can handle whatever happens, or not everything will go wrong. And say these affirmations to yourself daily to encourage a more positive outlook. I have a set of positive affirmations for better mental health available from my store as a digital download. It's linked in the episode description, or just head to ltamh.com. Okay, next, create a mantra to disrupt negative thinking. Sometimes a quick and powerful phrase can help disrupt negative thinking patterns when they arise. Something like, I'll deal with it if it happens, or I can handle uncertainty, can remind you of your resilience in the face of worst-case fears. It's a simple and quick mental reset that brings you back to a place of calm and confidence. Whenever you notice worst-case thinking creeping in, repeat your mantra to yourself to reinforce your ability to cope with the unknown. Next, practice relaxation techniques. Worst-case thinking often increases your stress and anxiety, but relaxation techniques like deep breathing, progressive muscle relaxation, or meditation can help counteract that because they calm your nervous system, making it easier to think clearly instead of getting swept up in fear. When you catch yourself expecting the worst, take a few deep breaths or practice a short relaxation exercise, which can break the cycle of negative thoughts and help you regain a more balanced perspective. Okay, next, surround yourself with optimistic influences. The people around you can significantly impact your mindset. Surrounding yourself with supportive and optimistic people helps reinforce a balanced outlook because their positive perspectives can naturally rub off on you. Plus, it beats being around miserable negative people. This approach works because it normalizes looking for good outcomes, making it easier for you to adopt that mindset yourself. Try spending more time with friends or colleagues who encourage and uplift you, and you'll find it easier to avoid worst-case thinking. And so, what do you do if the worst-case scenario does actually happen? Well, when the worst-case scenario actually happens, it's perfectly natural to feel shaken, but how you respond can make a big difference in how you move forward. Start by acknowledging your feelings without judgment, whether that's disappointment, fear, sadness, whatever you're feeling. This validation helps you process the situation rather than suppress it. From there, focus on breaking the problem down. What parts of it can you address now, and what will need more time? Setting small, manageable steps towards resolving or coping with the issue can help prevent feelings of overwhelm. To stop yourself from slipping back into pessimism, especially if your brain goes into the I told you so mindset, remind yourself that while setbacks do happen, they don't define the future. One difficult experience or situation doesn't mean that every outcome will turn out poorly. Practice looking for any lessons or growth that can come from the experience. This helps build your resilience. Consider how your words and actions can contribute positively to making things better, and look for opportunities to be part of the solution instead of focusing on the problem. Finally, surround yourself with supportive people who can offer perspective and encouragement. Staying present and focusing on what you can control allows you to move forward with a realistic and balanced outlook, rather than letting one difficult situation dictate your mindset. Because when it comes to the worst case scenario and your mental health, what it all boils down to is this. Letting go of worst case thinking is about choosing to approach life with a sense of openness and realistic optimism. When you stop assuming that things will always go wrong, you allow yourself to experience the full range of possibilities that life has to offer, including the positive outcomes that might surprise you. Shifting your mindset takes time and consistent effort, but each small step you take towards embracing a more balanced outlook can lead to a profound impact on your mental well-being. Remember, you're the one in control of how you respond to life's uncertainties, and by giving yourself permission to let go of fear-driven thinking, you're creating space for growth, resilience, and a more satisfying life. The choice is yours, as it is with all things related to your well-being. So, what choice will you make today? Each week, I like to finish up by sharing a quote about the week's topic, and I encourage you to take a few moments to really reflect on it and consider what it means to you. This week's quote is by an unknown author, and it is, "To find optimism, look for the good things in life." Let me repeat that. To find optimism, look for the good things in life. All right, that's nearly it for this week. Let me know, how do you stop expecting the worst case scenario? If you're on Spotify, you can share in the comments section below. Otherwise, find me on Instagram at LTA Mental Health, or comment on the transcript and show notes, which you can have delivered to your inbox each week. Sign up at ltamh.com. And support my show on Patreon for early access to ad-free episodes and more. You'll find it linked in the episode description. Next week, I'll be talking about how to deal with feeling overwhelmed. That will be out on December 8, and I hope you'll join me for it. Hit follow on your podcast service and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. Thank you very much for joining me today. Look after yourself and make a conscious effort to share positivity and kindness out into the world, because you get back what you put out. Take care and talk to you next time. Let's Talk About Mental Health is an independent program proudly produced by Reconnaissance Media.